Hey, so if you are on a spiritual and ascension path, this video is for you. I just had an amazing conversation with Leslie, the astrologer, specifically about the United States Pluto return. Now, Pluto basically represents a complete death and rebirth, a complete transformation. And this is literally coming up in February. The United States as a country is having its complete transformation and moving into from the old paradigm into the new. So this is going to be a very, very interesting time. So watch this video where Leslie and I have a conversation about this. We also talk about the Venus and retrograde energies this month in January. So enjoy.
The big thing that's going on right now for January 2022 is that Venus is retrograde and she's been conjunct Pluto. And the United States is going to be having her Pluto return in 2022, meaning for the first time since this country was founded, if you're in the United States, Pluto is going back to the same exact point that he was in back when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. So we didn't know that Pluto existed at the time. And our founding fathers were pretty into astrology back then. Apparently, Ben Franklin had consulted an astrologer for a good day to sign. They were looking for an auspicious day to sign the Declaration of Independence. Wow. But there was a couple things that they were not aware of. One was that Neptune, which is the planet of spirituality, was in Virgo, which it hates. It's one of its least favorites, the opposite of where it wants to be. Neptune wants to be in Pisces, which is very spiritual and altruistic and unselfish and unconditionally loving sign. And Virgo is very critical and down to earth, but can be very unforgiving, like wants everything perfect. And that doesn't exist. It's also the sign of healthcare. And an interesting thing that I heard another astrologer say was that we're making healthcare our new religion.
Oh, yeah.
Where science is like spirituality, in that it's trying to seek the truth. The difference between spirituality and religion, right, is the spirituality is trying to seek the truth, and religion is more of an organized group. And right, it's more of a controlled system. Healthcare is a controlled system. It's in my country, in the United States, it's a for-profit system. So the money comes first before the health. Not to be confused with science, which is seeking the truth. So the two were, back when our country was founded, there was a lot of religious people trying to save us. We can't let you go to hell, so we're going to burn you up at the stake. Now we've got a lot of healthcare trying to save us. We're gonna give you chemotherapy, your kid chemotherapy, and charge you with, send you to Child Protective Services because you're not gonna let your kid have chemotherapy. That's the kind of things that I started to see in the nursing field, where we're trying to save people. I was working in psych, and I'm thinking, how is this? If you weren't suicidal before you got on the psych ward, you will be now. And the patients would say, like, they'd be freaking out, and like you've got them in restraints and you're shooting them up with drugs, and they're like, oh yeah, you really give a crap about my life, and that's the healthcare system. That's not science. No, the two should not be. You don't want to confuse religion for spirituality, and you don't want to confuse healthcare for science. They're different. They're supposed to be based on each other, right? When religion is a good thing, it's based on true spirituality. When healthcare is good, it's based on true science. But we have a lot of conflicts of interest.
I think they need to bring in
United
astrologists. They need to bring in astrologists into the healthcare and science industries and make sure everything's
really, it would help in psych.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that. I could look at the charts and be like, we're going to be getting a bunch of Virgos this week. It's not a good week for Virgos. Virgos are coming. Wow. But yes, so those were two things that the United States wasn't aware of when it was born, was that we had Neptune in her, it's called detriment, in the opposite sign of where she wants to be. So she was in Virgo in the house of religion, right? So it's like our healthcare has become the religion.
Wow.
And Pluto was in Capricorn. So Pluto in Capricorn is, Capricorn is structures. So it's any physical structure like architecture, but it could be a structure like a government structure or the healthcare structure or a university, the institution, like who's at the top, the CEO, like a corporation structure, who's at the top, who's at the
banks as
banks.
well. Yeah.
Bank would be one of any big organization like that, a big institution.
Like central banks, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're being faced with Pluto. Pluto is the destroyer. Pluto destroys in order to rebuild. So are we living up to the structure that we said we were building? We said when we founded this country that we were building a structure that was good for all people, that was, supposed to be fair to everybody. And it was supposed to be a structure that would help us be independent. It would foster independence in us.
Yeah.
Are we living up to that promise? Our moon is in Aquarius. So we're supposed to nurture others, the opposite of Leo. Others are always, I feel, in astrology, anyone that's outside of your culture. So if you're living in a predominantly white culture, it's those other people, the minorities, right? So whenever Aquarius is prominent, because it's the other people, issues around racism and things like that seem to come up. So we're having the Saturn return of Rodney King. We had the Saturn return of Rodney King when George Floyd was killed. That was the first time Saturn was in Aquarius since Rodney King. Prior to the time before that Saturn was in Aquarius was when the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1963. So every time Saturn comes around in Aquarius, and because the United States, our moon is in Aquarius, which is home, we're saying, did you create a home for these other people, for these marginalized people? Are you living up to that? And it becomes kind of front and center. So those are issues that have been going on since 2020, and they're still kind of following us into 2021 and 2022.
Oh, yeah.
Where we're really dealing with the reality. So our realities of what we thought we were with Pluto being in Capricorn, it's like, that's a shattering of the structure. That's a government is a structure, right? So it's a breakdown. It could be it means we need to make a huge change, a big change. Pluto is everything we can't control. So it's what's important to other people and what do other people do? And we can't control that. So, but do we have a structure that's going to basically respect everybody's values, not just the individual? So.
Well, I'm following some experts in the financial markets, and they're saying that basically this is potentially the downfall of the U.S. At least being the financial center point of the world. That this is kind of the beginning of the end of the U.S. Leading the world, and that the powers are going more towards Asia.
I feel like it's a rude awakening we're getting a little bit. I mean, Pluto and Capricorn would back that up. It's like if you didn't create structures that were strong enough and realistic enough to handle a crisis, which is Pluto is Pluto and Capricorn at the end of Capricorn has been this pandemic. It's been kind of fighting with a lot of other planets in the sky and with planets in the United States chart. So it's Pluto is destruction. And I kind of feel like if our structures were not based in reality enough, they're not going to be strong enough to handle the crisis.
Okay.
There's been we kind of have this idealistic thing in the United States, right? Where it's like, just pull yourself up, walk it off, pull yourself. Everybody has equal rights. Just, suck it up and do
Mhm.
it, and it's like, that's not always realistic. It's a very black and white way of thinking.
Mm.
We don't do everything on our own. Nobody gets
Yeah.
anywhere by themselves. Somebody
Yeah.
put a diaper on them at some point when they were a
One of
toddler.
the reasons I'm in Bali, one of the many reasons is like if there was a financial collapse in the United States, like I don't know how well the systems would be able to support the people. I mean,
Yeah,
whereas in Bali,
it's
like
terrifying.
yeah, whereas in Bali, the locals, like they've dealt with volcanic eruptions, like dengue fever, like they've dealt with so many things in their lifetimes that like this would be like potentially no big
Mhm.
deal. And they can live off the land here. Um, but anyways, that's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Meanwhile, here in the civilized world, the only people that are going to know how to survive are already homeless right now. So they've been
mm,
doing it. That's
yeah,
that's my fear. And I used to really, I mean, now I just feel like what are you going to do?
right,
I'm
right,
just
right.
like powerless. So whatever is going to happen. And I feel like I am watching the United States kind of fall. And sadly, astrologically, there's a lot backing that up.
Mm,
Um, I know I've mentioned to you before, we've talked about this before. So not only are we having our Pluto return for the United States, we're having our Neptune return of the Civil War,
wow.
which the last time it was in Neptune was in Pisces was during the Civil War.
Whoa.
Yeah, okay, I want to make sure I had that right. When we were fighting slavery. We're having the Uranus return of World War II, the Dust Bowl.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Yes, right?
Uh,
Right. And not only is it the Neptune return of um, the Civil War, but it's the Neptune opposition of our country's natal chart. What I was just talking about, the whole letting healthcare become the new religion,
oh
and
my
not
God.
seeing the difference between spirituality versus religion and healthcare versus science. They're
Right.
two different things. So that's sort
Wow.
of being reflected in our chart too.
That's
But
fascinating.
it is, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
because people are
that's when you're
talking
like,
like people are kind of mumbling like, oh, Civil War, like, oh my God.
right?
And then like my
Yeah.
parents, like when I was home last year, my parents were just watching like Nazi movies like all the time. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because the energy is kind of back. This is
Yeah.
it's Uranus and Taurus. There's no real consensus about the outer planets, like what signs. We know what they like to be in and what they don't like, but we don't know where they're exalted and where they're in fall. And I'm convinced that Uranus in Taurus is the fall. Like it is its least favorite sign to be in, because I mean, I think about last time it was there. It's a crisis of values, because if Taurus is values, Uranus is sort of this um, rude awakening energy.
Yeah.
It's a surprise. It's either oh my gosh, Eureka, it just occurred to me, like a light bulb going off, but it could also be a rude awakening. So
Okay.
you've got sort of rude awakenings. I mean, I feel like since the 80s, the values, Western values have been kind of off, like
Yeah.
literally putting profits before people's well-being. I mean, we have a whole industry based on it here now. And it's sort of, I feel like Uranus, it doesn't care. It's just going to tell you what the truth is. Uranus and Aquarius, it's like it's like Mr. Spock from Star Trek or the Borg. It's just,
Oh,
well, whatever's good, it doesn't care. It's just going to say what the truth is and it's going to go with it. So there's sort of like the truth about money and the truth about values kind of a rude awakening. This is it.
Wow.
This is the manifestation of what you valued.
That's why I've been learning so
society.
much. I've been learning more about money than I've learned in my entire life in the past year, because there's just so much information.
Because your
coming
ruling
out.
planet is in the sign of money, because you're in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Your ruling planet is in the sign of money.
Oh,
And
okay, that makes sense.
And that's why it's crypto. It's weird money, because Uranus is weird. Uranus is also technology. So it's technology based money. So the good thing about this whole dance that Venus and Capricorn are doing is that we are going to have change. And so honestly, the people that have been having a really hard time, I would say like the last 20 years or so, like if this whole overabundance and manifestation, but it's sort of based on nothing really solid, you know, like there's been a lot of, manifesting, like a lot of wealth built on credit, not actual, nothing really solid, and things like that, you know, just this overabundance of big cars and big houses. If this has not been working for you, the next year is going to be easy for you. This is going to be tough for the people that have been sort of living this overabundance and have kind of had good luck with that over the last 20 years. I feel like things might start to constrict on them. So, you know, with astrology, it's energy. So it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It really is how if you're willing to accept what you can't control, basically, and to sort of lean into it. Because sometimes it's not appropriate to be optimistic and happy. Sometimes it's appropriate to go, this isn't good and we need to do better. You know, and that can be the positive part of it, is like knowing that, okay, we know things now that we didn't know 20 years ago and even 300 years ago. And we can either flog ourselves for it, or we can say, you know what, we can do better. We don't have to do it like this anymore. We can do better. And it does have to do a lot with relating. It's mostly values though. Venus is in Capricorn. To me, that's the queen. It's the queen behind. The king is the inspiring one. The king is like Leo, the fire, the heart. I feel like the queen is behind the king, doing all the boring paperwork. And so that's sort of, I feel like, what's taking over. We can really build solid structures for ourselves on a personal level, and then also on a society level. But yeah, sometimes have to go through the tough part to get to the joyful part. We don't, you know, this isn't like going to be like 2020, where it was just, I remember looking at 2020 before 2020, and I think we even probably had an astrology consult, and I'm like, whatever you're going to do, get it done before March 20th, or you're not going to be able to do it until Christmas. And there was even a couple times during the summer we had talked, and I'm like, it doesn't look good. You know, you wanted to have like a retreat that people were going to travel to, right? Yeah. And have to come in person. And in August 2020, that was still not happening.
To cancel that. We're not even planning to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's like we all are redoing everything. But you know, there's been some good things that have come out of this. I mean, just getting cars off the road has really healed a lot of the atmosphere. Like they were saying in LA that the air pollution is down to what it was 20 years ago, because there are less people driving. And even though the traffic has gone back up again, it's still not like what it was before the pandemic.
Do you think with the South Node moving out of Sagittarius, do you think traveling is going to get easier, like traveling on planes?
I think it's going to get more realistic. You know, like I feel like I just feel like getting on a plane and going somewhere, you know, and I feel like that might happen less and less.
I feel like it was like way too lavish. Like, was there a lot of Leo energy with the flying? Because it felt like just people were
That's
just flying.
Sagittarius. Sagittarius is flying. And when Pluto first went into Sagittarius, remember that plane exploded over Long Island? It
Ah.
was 1996, and a plane exploded over Long Island. I remember a lot of astrologers were saying, yeah, that's because it's, we need, our planes are getting old and they need to start refurbishing them and start using new technology.
Hmm.
But that was Pluto and Sag. So Pluto, whatever sign it's in, it's what we need to master so it doesn't destroy us. So we really needed to master with the Sag, when Pluto was in Sagittarius from 96 till 09, we really needed to master other cultures, like basically international relations, because that's other cultures flying. Okay, wait, maybe this is not sustainable. We need to do something a little less polluting, a little, but that's what we're supposed to be looking at. And now, ever since 2009, it's been structures. How's the education structure? How's the healthcare structure? How's the government structure? Not so good.
Some corruption in
Not
there.
so good right now.
Uh-oh.
But the
Whoops.
good thing is with Venus there, Venus is like, if Pluto's Darth Vader, then Venus is Princess Leia, and she's leading the resistance.
Oh.
We're seeing what's really important, and we're gonna take down the things that are in the way of that, of what's really valuable, and
Oh,
rebuild
wow.
them. Yeah, and
Wow.
the kids being born right now are probably physically going to be rebuilding these things when they come of
Right.
age.
Right. And then the North Node is going into
Oh,
Taurus soon. So that's going to be activating
is it Taurus or
Venus,
is it?
right?
Oh, and that is South Node in Sagittarius, by the way, overabundance, because the South Node is
Oh,
my astrology teacher used to call it what comes easy but sleazy. So it's like the easier part of that energy, but the less enlightened version. So if you think about all the time that the South Node's been in Sagittarius, it's been not the enlightened version of Sagittarius, it's been the overabundance. And if you think about
oh,
the ruling planet for Sagittarius, it's the biggest planet in the solar system, but it has the least amount of substance. It's just a big ball of gas, right?
okay.
So
Ah,
that a lot of that overabundance that we've seen during the Pluto and Sag times has been this, it's going to destroy us if we keep
overly
doing that.
optimistic too, right?
A little overly optimistic.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's that toxic positivity instead of realistic positivity. What
Yeah.
toxic positivity would be like somebody died and you're like, oh, no, it's fine. I'm not dealing with my grief. No.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. When people are like, just stay positive. Well,
I
sometimes
know
you have
that.
to
Yeah. I have
deal
a
with
friend
it.
who did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like, no.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but so like this is sort of this time that we're in until Pluto goes into Aquarius. We are really dealing with structures, creating healthy boundaries in our personal lives, creating healthy boundaries in our relationships in our personal lives, having adult type of relationships, like responsible relationships, understanding that, you can't just boss people around or expect somebody else to be the boss and do it for you. Not kind of a reckless independence, but sort of like a responsible maturity. That's the thing that's going to keep us from destroying ourselves, is being
Yeah.
realistic. Black and white thinking won't work. You gotta, Capricorns are very patient and they understand timing very well. They make great comedians because they understand timing. They make great drummers because they understand timing, but they're really good at building structures because they're really just, they've got that good instincts about what's gonna stay strong. So they make great bosses, but we don't want to be in a place where we're looking for someone else to be the boss of us or looking for someone else to be the adult. It's like we have to be the adults.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, it's really time for us to take full responsibility for our lives and what we want to create, as the world is changing so quickly around us, like constantly. and to come together community. I think you know, Uranus is a lot of community energy, and a
Yeah.
lot of Aquarius energies coming through, right? With the
Well, yes,
what
Saturn
happened
really
last
loves
year.
to be in Aquarius.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it creates a kind of responsible structure so that, you know, everyone's independence is respected in a way, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm
like
getting
you're different
involved.
from me, I'm different from you, but that doesn't mean we can't all live within the same society. It's just we have to build a structure that respects everybody.
Yeah, I'm getting involved with a community here in Bali who's going to be building on some land up north, and all of what you said, like, yeah, it's all about like honoring each individual's like gifts and what they're going to bring to the community, and yeah, it's really exciting, and everyone's going to contribute in their own way, and we're figuring out a long-term plan is we're figuring out a way to use crypto in the community to create kind of its own micro economy
Yeah.
with crypto. Yeah.
So I just want, before we go, I do want to look at and just give you some guys some dates on what Venus is doing. So Venus went retrograde at 26 degrees Capricorn. And she'll go direct. And that was on, okay, she went retrograde December 19th. So that was like right at the winter solstice, at 26 degrees Capricorn. And she'll go direct on the 28th of January at 11 degrees Capricorn. So that means that this energy actually started when Venus was at 11 degrees Capricorn back in, let's see, so that would have been November 13th. It was a Saturday. No, sorry, that's wrong. It was the 18th, November 18th. She went into her shadow. So there was already this kind of feeling around November 18th, right before Thanksgiving, of this pausing. Like maybe people started going, what do I really want to spend money on for Christmas? Or do I? Like, what's really important here?
I know some people who broke up, who their relationships broke up, multiple people at that time.
Yeah, the 22nd, for some reason, I feel like it really started to manifest itself on November 22nd. Just like I know a lot of people had very significant things seem to happen that day.
Totally.
So that's when I feel like, you know, the shadow of Venus really started to become obvious between the 11th, not the 11th, the 18th and the 22nd. People were really feeling the shadow. So she did go retrograde on December 19th at 26 degrees. So if you have anything in your chart in Earth or Aries, Cancer, or Libra at 26 degrees, it's going to set off some kind of an initiation in your life, in that area of your life. There was some friction that caused you to make a move. So wherever it was, if it was in Libra, it would have had to do with relationships. If it was in Aries, it would have to do with individuality. If it's Cancer, it has to do with comfort and at home, or maybe your mom. And if it's Capricorn, you're just getting hit. You're getting hit really hard. You're finding out what your life's purpose is and what your calling is. So Venus will be direct on January 28th.
Yeah.
And then she is back at 26 degrees on March 4th. Oh, sorry, March 2nd. So that's where this energy that started around the 18th of November sort of starts to wrap up on March 2nd. And that's when you can kind of say like, okay, where am I going to move forward now? With this huge change, the relationship broke up, or you decided to do something different with money. And this could also be if there's been something really difficult, like if you've had financial issues or relationship issues for the last 20 years, like some issue from your childhood that's been messing up your finances and your relationships that you haven't been able to deal with it. This could be the time that it comes to the surface, you're able to heal from it and sort of now have healthier relationships and a healthier relationship with money.
Yeah.
If and you've had an unhealthy relationship with money and it's been working for you, this could be a difficult time. Like if you know that you like, I'm making tons of money, and but even though I'm doing kind of shady stuff, and yeah, some people are getting hurt by it, but those people might have a hard time.
Yeah.
That may not work. It's been working for a long time for them. But
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, they don't have the
Cool.
structure back. They're not going to have the structure backing them up anymore. Like we were talking about big pharma, things like that. Oil companies, they've had a lot of support that they don't really deserve in a lot of ways, and they may be losing it.
Okay.
But the people that needed support and needed structures, this is an opportunity. Luna wants to.
That's such a
Do you have
cute
something to
dog.
say, Luna, about Pluto
Luna.
and Capricorn?
Oh, what a cutie. Luna, like the moon. Nice.
Luna's saying, look at, it's really how you want to embrace it. The change is inevitable. The
Yeah.
structures are going to change both on a big level and on a level in your personal life. So are you going to kick and scream when the change happens, or are you going to go with it? And that's really going to determine whether this feels like doom or gloom or not.
Yeah.
Is how you decide to handle the energy.
Yeah. Luna is saying y'all just got to relax and go with the flow and just be at peace.
Yeah, that's right.
Eat some good food and yeah.
Yeah.
Just
It
relax.
just, it's just life.